Hi, I'm Richard Newton, Managing Director at Fresh Learning, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be discussing prioritisation. Time management and prioritisation are two areas that are increasingly of interest to people in what is an increasingly rapid pace of life, and therefore today we'll be looking at a very simple and straightforward tool to allow us to prioritise effectively, utilising the work of former US President and military general Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower himself is famous for the quote, "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." And it's this quote that we're going to use to help us to ask two simple questions and prioritise more effectively. However, prior to us doing that, what I'd like to ask you to do is to complete a very short activity. In a second, place the video on pause and grab a sheet of paper and a pen in order to make a list of every single task that you currently have to do today. Now that hopefully you've done that, we'll be able to proceed by looking at a 4-box method or 4-room method, looking at prioritisation using two key areas: level of importance and level of urgency. And the key thing we have to do is ask us two questions with regards to that. What is the level of importance of the task? What is the level of urgency? The answer to this allows us to put the task in priority order, utilising the 4 rooms or boxes that we have. So if a task is high urgency, high importance, the probably most obvious one of these two areas is to place this in the area of an A priority, or a task that we need to do straight away, because it's both important and urgent. Next up, what we have to think about, however, is the level of importance, because often if we were to look at this grid and determine based upon those questions, we'd perhaps tackle those things of high urgency first, whereas actually there are things that are more important that we really perhaps should be focusing on. As part of that, what we have to think about is, with those tasks of high urgency, how can we perhaps consider their completion more effectively, and perhaps consider whether they're more important for somebody else who is more accurately placed to actually complete them. Therefore meaning that instead of actually completing them, we delegate them to somebody else, leaving us those high important but perhaps less urgent tasks as actually the B priorities, the second list of things that we come to once we've completed those high importance, high urgent tasks. The reason why we say this is, if it's important, we should be tackling it and doing it. And if we can do it whilst the level of urgency is lower, we typically have a more relaxed and less stressful approach to the task. Also, we can often complete it more effectively. Therefore, those tasks that are both important but not so urgent, are the tasks that we should complete second. As mentioned, the third quadrant that is mentioned, the C and the D tasks, are those things that we need to consider later and perhaps delegate in order to allow us to not necessarily have to complete them. With the exception perhaps of a hierarchical situation where perhaps a manager is asking us to complete them, the level of urgency is great, and actually it's something we do need to complete even though the level of importance perhaps isn't as high. That brings us to the fourth quadrant and those interesting tasks that are neither urgent nor important. Those tasks themselves, you might think, are tasks that we would never ever attempt to do, but actually we're quite good at slotting them into our day. And what I would ask you to consider with tasks in this particular quadrant is, number one, should we actually be eliminating them from our task list? Because if they present no level of urgency and no level of importance, why are we actually doing them? How do they help us to become an effective person in terms of prioritisation? There is one slight exception to this, and this is the F-level tasks, those fun-only tasks that perhaps appear in this quadrant. My recommendation is that they can be very good for helping us to motivate ourselves to perhaps become productive in completing the other tasks when used in moderation. And so we may want to consider some tasks in this quadrant if they are in that fun-only category. But they shouldn't be the primary thing that we're completing. And perhaps we could use them instead as a way of rewarding ourselves for completing some of those A and B level priorities. As ever, there's more information about this particular model on our written version of the blog, where you can perhaps find a little bit more information. Don't forget, you can always also contact us using the social media connections that we have. Many thanks for watching.